What happens when the ruthless daughter of Darkseid faces the unrelenting daughter of Lobo? Two legacies of destruction collide in a cosmic showdown where only one can stand victorious. Welcome to Myths and Mythologies, where we unravel epic tales of heroes, gods, and legends. If you love action-packed stories that bring mythology to life, you've come to the right place. Let's dive into this unforgettable clash.
Are you just watching?
Subscribe, please.
The universe, vast and boundless, often births conflict where least expected. In the farthest reaches of creation, two legacies forged in chaos would find themselves on a collision course. One was Grail, the fierce and unrelenting daughter of Darkseid, Lord of Apokolips. The other was Crush, the rebellious yet ferocious offspring of the intergalactic bounty hunter Lobo. Their fates, driven by the wills of their infamous fathers, would collide in a battle of unparalleled might. Born from an Amazonian mother and Darkseid himself, Grail was destined to embody the fury of two worlds. Raised on Apokolips, she inherited her father's unyielding cruelty, but also the strength and wisdom of her Amazonian lineage. Her life was one of relentless training, discipline, and conquest. Grail grew to detest her father's dominance, vowing to one day surpass him. She traveled the multiverse, spreading her influence, collecting relics of power and defeating champions of light to cement her reputation. Though she was deeply loyal to her father's dream of universal domination, Grail sought to achieve it on her terms. In her pursuit of supremacy, she sought the Omega Scythe, a weapon said to rival the might of the Omega Effect itself. But acquiring the weapon required traversing into uncharted territories. The Forbidden Rift, a realm where even Apokolips' most valiant feared to tread. On the opposite end of the moral spectrum was Crush, a child of the Czarnian warrior Lobo, though she often denied her bloodline. Abandoned as an infant and left to fend for herself on a desolate planet, Crush's life was a turbulent mix of hardship and defiance. Her strength, inherited from her father, made her a terror among her enemies. But it was her independence and fierce sense of justice that set her apart. Crush despised everything her father stood for: mindless violence, recklessness, and a complete disregard for others. Determined to carve her own path, she roamed the cosmos, helping the helpless while exacting vengeance on those who preyed on the weak. But fate would not allow her to escape her lineage. One fateful day, Crush stumbled upon an ancient artifact, the celestial chain of Zethra, an item her father once sought but never acquired. Legends claimed the chain could bind even the gods themselves. However, Crush's attempt to wield the artifact summoned a dark omen, Grail, seeking to claim the celestial chain for her conquest. When Grail learned of Crush's possession of the celestial chain, she saw an opportunity. If combined with the Omega Scythe, the chain could amplify her power to an unimaginable degree, making her a threat to both gods and mortals. Determined to take it, Grail tracked Crush to a derelict planet on the edge of the galaxy. Crush, however, wasn't one to back down. Though she held no desire to become embroiled in intergalactic schemes, the idea of someone like Grail possessing such power was a risk she couldn't ignore. With her Czarnian blood boiling and her rebellious spirit ignited, Crush prepared for the inevitable showdown. Their encounter on the barren planet was one of immediate hostility. Grail's commanding presence and ruthless nature clashed with Crush's unyielding defiance and street-smart wit. The two exchanged words laced with venom, but diplomacy was never an option. The battle was inevitable, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. In one corner stood Grail, wielding the raw power of Apokolips and her relentless ambition. In the other was Crush, embodying her father's unmatched ferocity, but tempered by her own moral compass. As the winds of the desolate world howled around them, the daughters of two of the universe's most infamous warriors stared each other down, their father's legacies looming large. The stage was set. The clash of titans was about to begin. The barren wasteland echoed with the tension of the impending fight. Grail's crimson eyes flared with the energy of the Omega effect, her dark presence casting an oppressive aura over the battlefield. Crush, unshaken, cracked her knuckles and gripped the celestial chain tightly, her Czarnian blood surging with raw power. Neither combatant spoke. The silence was broken only by the roar of the winds as the battle began. Grail moved first, her speed a blur as she closed the distance. Her fists, charged with Omega energy, slammed into Crush, sending shockwaves rippling through the ground. Crush gritted her teeth and absorbed the blow, her Czarnian resilience holding strong. She retaliated with a wide swing of the celestial chain, its links glowing with an ethereal light as it smashed into Grail's side, hurling her across the battlefield. Grail skidded to a halt, her armor cracked, but her determination unwavering. "You'll regret standing against me," she snarled, her hands forming spheres of searing Omega beams. She unleashed them in a chaotic volley, the beams arcing unpredictably toward Crush. Crush dodged and weaved through the onslaught, her agility surprising even Grail. But one beam grazed her shoulder, searing her flesh and leaving her growling in pain. Fueled by fury, Crush closed the gap and swung the chain again, this time aiming for Grail's legs. The strike connected, knocking Grail off balance. Crush followed up with a brutal uppercut, sending Grail airborne. As Grail tumbled through the air, she recovered mid-flight and summoned the Omega Scythe, a weapon of pure destruction. She descended upon Crush with a ferocious slash, the blade cleaving through the ground as Crush narrowly dodged. The battlefield became a war zone, each blow from the two warriors leveling the terrain around them. The fight raged on, both combatants bloodied but unyielding. Grail's strategic mind sought to exploit Crush's raw, instinct-driven fighting style, while Crush relied on her resilience and improvisation to keep up. As the battle reached its zenith, Grail managed to disarm Crush, the celestial chain flying from her grasp and embedding itself in the ground several meters away. Seizing the moment, Grail struck with the Omega Scythe, its blade grazing Crush and leaving a deep gash across her chest. Crush fell to one knee, blood dripping onto the cracked earth. "You were never my equal," Grail declared, raising the scythe for a final strike. But Crush wasn't done. Summoning every ounce of her Czarnian willpower, she let out a guttural roar and lunged at Grail, catching her off guard. Her fists became a flurry of devastating blows, each punch landing with the force of a meteor. Grail staggered, her confidence wavering for the first time. Crush then made a desperate dive for the celestial chain, grabbing it just as Grail recovered and lunged toward her. With a powerful swing, Crush wrapped the chain around Grail's scythe arm and yanked it downward, disarming her opponent. The scythe clattered to the ground, and Crush immediately followed up with a bone-crushing headbutt that sent Grail sprawling. Grail struggled to rise, her body battered and her Omega energy waning. Crush stood over her, bloodied but triumphant, the celestial chain glowing with power in her hands. "You're tough, I'll give you that," Crush growled, "but you're not unbeatable." With a final thunderous swing of the chain, Crush struck Grail square in the chest, the impact creating a shockwave that reverberated across the battlefield. Grail collapsed unconscious, her armor shattered and her strength utterly spent. Breathing heavily, Crush dropped the chain and looked down at her fallen opponent. "Guess your old man isn't the only one who loses," she muttered, wiping blood from her lip. As the winds of the desolate planet settled, Crush stood victorious, a testament to her strength, willpower, and refusal to let anyone, no matter how powerful, dictate her destiny. She turned and walked away, leaving Grail to contemplate her defeat, the celestial chain once again secured in Crush's possession. The daughter of Lobo had won, proving that even the offspring of Darkseid could fall when faced with unrelenting defiance and determination.